tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa kamma vipaka vattanti vipako kamma sambhavo kamma punabhavo hoti evaṃ loko pavattati iti. Good evening, everyone. Today we have gathered to have a Dhamma sermon, Dhamma session, to listen to a Dhamma sermon. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I am Venerable Watagoda Maggavihārī. I live in Sri Lanka, in an area called Karuwalagaswawa. Maybe most of you are not aware of that area. It's in the northwest regions, close to Puttalam. Okay, Anamaduwa, close to Puttalam. I'm from International Institute of Theravada. It's a monk training center. We are more than 70 monks are residing, and they have been trained under the Theravada doctrine. So I recently visited Australia 2 days ago due to the invitation made by Dilu Disanayaka and Taraka Vitanage, and I'm staying in Melbourne for few days, and I was invited by Mr. Dayanath, one of my uncle's friends, Mr. Priyanteka Nayakas, right? So
very famous personality.
Yeah, he's a Ragarite, and he was the captain of Sri Lanka for 10 years. Yes. Yeah, my mother's youngest brother. Yeah. So I would like to talk about a very pivotal concept in Theravada Buddhism, in any Buddhist school, which we call karma. Karma means good and bad deeds. In Western philosophy, we call this ethics. What should we do and what should we not do? So how to understand our life, understand our ethics, and how should we lead our lives based on this philosophy, on this view about our lives, mainly determining what sort of actions that we should pursue and what we should be avoiding. According to the Buddha's teachings, every action has the innate goodness or badness. It's aligned to the Kantian ethics. If you are aware of any philosophy, ethics, Western philosophy, there is a view called Kantian ethics. Kantian ethics is more aligned to Buddha's teachings. Buddha defined the goodness and the badness of an action not mainly based on the consequences it brings, not based on the outcome. Mainly every action contains goodness and badness in itself. So he has determined some actions are wholesome, which we call kusala in Pali, and some are unwholesome, akusala. And it's very important that we understand this concept very deeply, because it leads till meditation and also for the liberation from samsara, round of rebirths. And round of rebirths, liberation from samsara, is also circulating around this concept of karma, because according to teachings like Buddhism, karma can have a after effect which is a mysterious one beyond the ordinary human scope. So it's very important that we understand the basic ideas of karma. So I'll be talking about few aspects in this talk. How do we determine whether action is good or bad? What is the criteria? And what is the opposing criteria given by some other philosophers, and where Buddhism stands in this? And then, what are the two aspects of karma explained in Buddhism? Karma means action. Actions have two effects, two types of effects, effects to this present, very present life and effects to the future lives. How could this be explained? Theoretically, it cannot be proven. How could this be explained? Then finally, what would be the ultimate goal in Buddhism by doing wholesome deeds? Where should we lead ourselves? What is the end goal we should be trying to achieve in practicing wholesome deeds? What is the ultimate level of wholesome deeds, which we normally call meditation? Most of you are is achieving the Maggapalas and also liberating, and which has to be achieved through meditation, right? And also give you a chance to ask some questions after the talk is done. So first of all, we have to understand, how do we decide whether action is good or bad? There are mainly two philosophical views about this. Even though we are not very much educated on these two philosophical views, in our day-to-day lives, our minds do decide on certain incidents based on these two views, even we not been aware of that. One famous view is, action is decided good or bad based on its outcome. We normally call this consequentialism. That is, action is good if it brings a good outcome. And there is a very famous view on this regard, which is called utilitarianism. Maybe some of you have heard about this. Utilitarianism means greatest good for the greatest number. If an action, what is the benefits it brings to a greater number? Even though it brings harm to a lesser number, as long as it brings greatest benefits to the greater number, we consider it as a good action, action that should be done. That's why, following this viewpoint, people consider killing a terrorist is a good thing for the society. According to Buddhism, killing is prohibited, no doubt about that, right? But even Buddhists, when we listen, a terrorist has been killed, we just keep silent, right? We don't want to comment on that. Some would say, yes, that's a good thing. Yes, some would dare to say that. But sometimes, as Buddhists, who doesn't appreciate killing, we would keep silent, right? We would not dare to comment on this, because inside our minds we know it's an act that someone has been killed, and we never encourage killing. At the same time, we know if that person was not killed, he would be killing thousands of people, innocent people. So, utilitarianism says that you can, according to utilitarianism, action is decided good or bad based on its outcome. So, according to that, you can lie to save a person. Now, for example, a criminal is chasing an innocent person, and he comes and hides in your room. The police is maybe a corrupted government. The police is following someone to kill. So he is hiding in your room, and he comes and they come and ask you if the person is inside, and they believes you. Being truthful, one can say yes, he is inside, and surely surely he will be killed. The innocent person will be killed. And lying, you can say no, he is not inside, and they will go to the other house, and this person will be spared. So, according to utilitarianism or consequentialism, yes, lying to save the person is good because it went for a better outcome, saving the person, and that person is being deceived. Yes, no one likes to be deceived. You are talking from, if you know from the other person, the policeman's perspective, he would say, no, I have been deceived and I don't like to be deceived. No person deceived deserves to be deceived. But when you compare the weights of the two incidents, saving a person's life is much greater than deceiving someone else, because he has another opportunity. When you kill someone, he doesn't get opportunity in this life anymore, because killing, death is the ultimate thing in one's life. So, according to that, the goodness or the badness of an action is decided mainly solely based on its outcomes. The other point of view of karma is The action itself contains this goodness and badness. Killing itself is bad. Lying itself is bad. Buddha was of this view mainly. In some sutras, he have given the teachings based on the consequences. He has said, if you do these bad acts, you will get bad consequences, so we abstain from them. He has given such teachings, but actually, in essence, he was of the opinion that the actions contain the goodness and badness is innate. It's inside the action. It's something innate. So therefore, according to this view, certain actions has been determined as good and certain actions has been determined as bad. The obvious question one would ask is, who decided on this? Who decided on this? And some used to say it was the God's decision, and some said no, it has been the natural law. That is a natural law. This is how philosophy goes on. So I am not going to talk about all these philosophical issues, but I would like to drag your attention towards this goodness and badness of an action. Does an action contain this goodness and badness in it, in itself? Something to be thought of. According to this, regardless of the outcome, now for example, when a criminal is chasing an innocent person and he comes and hides in your house, you should follow, instead of lying or instead of pointing the person, you can follow skillful means to save the person. For example, when the criminal comes, you suddenly stand up and he asks, is he in your room? No, while I am standing here, I didn't see anyone coming here. Because he came while I was sitting, right? And he just stood up and stands up and says, no, so for example, he was standing here, suddenly when the criminal asks, did you see someone? You just move one step ahead and say, no, while I was here, I didn't see anyone. Because I saw him while I was in the different location, right? So technically he is not deceiving, technically speaking. But one would argue ethically you are deceiving the person in the end. You can do this in courts. Yes, obviously you cannot do this in courts, right? But still, even Immanuel Kant has said you can use ethical means. Still you are not deceiving the person, you are not giving wrong information. By essence, you are giving correct information, because I didn't see a person coming inside my house while I was standing here. I saw it while I was standing in a different position. Please don't do this, young people, when you talk with your parents, okay? Otherwise, I'll be in a big trouble, right? So it should not be followed always, right? But it can be done. There's a very famous story in Sri Lankan history when Tissa, the Prince Tissa, was followed by his elder brother Gamini, Duttugamunu. He hid under the bed of a monk, and the monks do not lie. Obviously, we cannot lie. The king came and asked, Tissa is there? They are utmost respect to the monks. Normally in Sri Lanka in those days, they would not arrest a person as long as he's inside the temple, right? It's prohibited by law. That much of respect they had towards the temples. But now it's not done, because even monks are being arrested for some monks for what they have done. So then he was under the bed. Then he asked, did Tissa come here? He said, he's not on the bed, he said. Right? But obviously he knew he was under the bed. So, so likewise, they have used skillful means just to deviate his attention without lying, because according to this view, lying itself is a bad act, regardless of its outcomes. So it doesn't mean that you have to always tell truth and to behave according to the ethics. We have to have some sort of a sense about the outcome, otherwise it could lead to a greater disaster, right? So finding skillful means is always encouraged according to this view. Even Buddha has done it sometimes. Now what happens with this view is, this view sometimes become impractical when it is applied in a major scale. Because according to this view, killing regardless of the person who has been killed is wrong. According to this viewpoint, you don't have the right to take the life of another being. You cannot deprive a being of his life regardless of any reason. Killing should not be done. Lying should not be done. Stealing should not be done. So these are ethical viewpoints. The activities are being clearly defined as good and bad. This seems very impractical when it comes to the mass scales. Why is that? For example, think now a country is being invaded by a foreign army. Right? Think about the Nazis who were brutally killing the people. They were just coming. And suddenly a person comes, for example, think if it's a Buddhist country like Sri Lanka, the president or someone comes to a monk and asks, what should we do now according to Buddhist philosophy? How can we answer? Should I say go and fight? If I instruct them to fight a war as a monk, according to the Buddha's rules, I lose my monkhood. If a monk instructs someone else to kill another human, he loses his monkhood and he cannot be a monk in this very life again. It's a very severe offense for us. And we would be accumulating a lot of akusala karmas. So only thing I can say is find out a skillful means to avoid the war. You would say it's not possible. They are just killing innocent people. I have to defend my country. So according to this ethical view, there is no answer for that. There is no answer for that. If you asked a Buddhist monk, how should we defend our country? If he wants to keep his precepts, monk's precepts that have been promulgated by the Buddha, you cannot encourage war. No, cannot. Impossible. So therefore, this ethical view of deciding actions as good and bad, the social level has become impractical when it comes to a mass scale, some incidences. Immanuel Kant has put this forward as an action is good as long as it can be generalized. An action is good as long as it can be generalized. For example, lying cannot be generalized. If everyone starts to lie, the entire society would collapse, right? Even for a liar to benefit out of his lies, others have to be truthful. Have you thought about that? For a liar to benefit out of his lies, others have to believe it, right? Others have to think that you are speaking the truth. Otherwise, you cannot benefit from your lie, right? You have to deceive someone to benefit of the lie, right? So everyone is lying. No, it's not possible for you to benefit from your lying. For a liar to benefit out of his lies, society has to be truthful. So therefore, lying cannot be generalized actually. But truthfulness, yes, it can be generalized. Even some occasions it can lead to some bizarre situations, but it is a thing that can be generalized. If everyone is truthful, yes, the society would run smoothly, possible. Killing cannot be generalized. Stealing cannot be generalized, no. So according to him, if an action can be generalized, that is a good action. That is an action to be followed. Buddha was also of the same opinion. So these good actions, innately good actions, can be followed by everyone. The society could function properly easily. So the goodness and the badness of, if in the ethical viewpoint that the action is good and bad, is applicable to the society, but in some instances it has shown to be impractical. The other viewpoint is consequentialism. Decide the action based on the outcome of the action. This seems very appealing. Why don't we follow that? Why don't we follow that? I'll give you a good thought experiment on this. That in the end, at the end of the thought experiment, you would say, you would give a different answer saying that certain actions are innately good and bad. Now listen attentively. There is a person called A. This A is, this is very good to understand where Buddhism stands and what to follow and what kind of a viewpoint that we should have about our lives, about our actions. Now think about this. There is a person called A. A is a leader of a huge retinue, a group, in one village or a city. B is another leader of another city. Somehow they were having some disagreements. A went to the city and killed B by himself. This is a thought experiment, okay? Thought experiment. A scenario, created scenario, and he comes back to his city. Now B's people doesn't know who killed their leader, but they know the killer is inside this city for sure. They are certain about it. They know it's inside. And they encircle the city. Now no one can escape from the city. And you are the governor. You are the governor. You are given the choice. You have to show me, and they know you know the person and they trust your word. You have to show who killed our leader. And you know A killed him. If you show A, they will kill A, but you know clearly it is going to result in a civil war, which is going to kill so many humans. War. You don't need to say about anything, right? And you can't keep silent. If you keep silent, because the city has been encircled, no one can escape, they are going to kill all the suspects. So many innocent people will be killed, and there are going to be a massacre. And you know it's A who killed, many other will be killed just because of the suspicion. So going to end up in a massacre. You cannot keep silent, and you have to show someone. Okay, think about the outcome. Greatest good to the greatest number. Greatest good for the greatest number. You are thinking about the consequences. But there is a person called C who doesn't have any relatives. He's a beggar. No parents, no children, no siblings, who is alone by himself. No one knows whether he is living or not even. And if you say C killed B, they are going to believe. And they are going to just kill this person and go away. No civil war, no massacre. Many will be spared, but only C will be killed. Now 3 outcomes. You point out A, it will end up in a civil war. You keep silent, it will end up in a massacre. You point C, he will be killed. The innocent man will be killed, but no one other will be killed. No one else will be killed. Would you show C? Would you point out C? What do you think? Sorry, that's why. Would you do that? I'm asking. Many would not, right? Why is that? So you are deciding this act based on a certain criteria. Why do you say no? Because you thought, you are in opinion that punishing an innocent person for a fault that he has not done is wrong. So what is this? Is it based on the consequences, or is based on the good or badness of the act? You think punishing an innocent person regardless of the outcomes, because it's going to give a great outcome. It's going to save a lot of people. Because the other 2 outcomes are ending up either in a civil war or a massacre. You are certain about it. Inevitable. In terms of the greatest good for the greatest numbers, pointing C is the best option. Right? But you will say, no, I would not do that, because it's innately wrong. So here, according to this thought experiment, you have decided the goodness and the badness of the action not based on the consequences, not based on the outcome. The action itself is wrong. Then someone would ask you the question, who decided on that? This is common sense, you would say. Who decided on this common sense? Are you sure about it? You'll not be able to answer, don't worry. No one would be able to answer that, right? So therefore, Buddha was of this opinion. Decide the goodness or the badness of the action based on the nature of the action, not based on the outcome of the action. It's a very nice thought experiment brought by Western philosophers. These were not brought by myself, okay? Right. This shows that the actions contain innately goodness or badness, but this is not refuting the consequentialism, because the reason is, if you bring this innate goodness and badness, according to most of the philosophers, that philosophy is not applicable to general masses. As I said, when a war is being waged by some other country, right, most of the rulers would say defending the country would be the best result, and it means killing other humans. That's why Aristotle once said, it's another good thing for you to think, good point for you to think, a good human can never be a good citizen. Citizen means, now in his days, Greek had cities, right? Greek were cities, Athens, Sparta and all these were cities. Citizens are who are living in a city. In today's words, in today's context, citizens are the civilians in a country, right? A good citizen must defend his country. In Indian words, it's called Matrubhumi. Your motherland have to be fatherland or motherland, whatever it is, it has to be defended. Some call it fatherland, some call it motherland, depending on their culture. It has to be defended. Whatever means, doesn't matter. The enemies of the motherland has to be punished. But a good human would have his own ethics. Regardless of the motherland, I will not break my ethics. So in that sense, a monk can never be a good citizen, right? Monk would never go for war to save his country. No, we cannot do that. Even Aristotle has said this. A good citizen, a good human doesn't mean that the good citizens are good human. It doesn't mean that good citizens are not good humans. You cannot follow all the ethics of a good human based on his idea if you want to be a good citizen, because a good citizen, the final goal is to defend the country. Prosperity of the country is what matters. But for a good human means for someone who follows certain ethics, as he said, I have to be careful on this, as he said, is to follow his own ethics. For example, if I apply this to a monk would never kill anyone. Even the person who is coming to kill the monk himself, we cannot kill him, even to that extent, right? So there's always the contradiction between this social context and the ethical context. So I just want you to give you a perspective on this. I'm not saying this is good or this is bad. Just keep it in mind. Sometimes we evaluate the decisions taken by the government, decisions taken by other people based on the consequences the action gives. That's why we keep silent. Even being Buddhist, we keep silent when a terrorist is being killed. Our mind inclined towards the consequences of the act. Inside us knows, yes, killing that person brings greater benefit to the society. But at the same time, we also ourselves know certain activities, regardless of the outcomes, contain goodness and badness within themselves. Buddha's teachings were of the second opinion. Then we come into another context. These good actions and bad actions, he coined them as karma. The English translation, the rendering would be actions. Actions are called kamma in Pali, in Sanskrit which is called karma. Our actions, according to him, has two effects. First effect is effects to this in this very present life. Outcomes of our activities, of our actions. For example, if someone strives hard, works hard, studies hard, pass the examinations and comes into a good living, good job and lives a good life and enjoy the life, have a good income and enjoy the life. So, these good status of the life is not because of any mysterious intervention from the divinity or from the past, it's just the outcomes of your own effort in this life, own striving. With our sweat and blood, we have earned all this success. Buddha has termed it as Utthana Palupajivi. Humans attain their success through their effort, mainly through their effort. So, this is the outcome of actions. If we do not study hard, if we become negligent, then in the end we will end up in a poor living or a poor living status. So, we cannot attribute this to the God or anyone else. This is our own decision. We chose this course of life and we ended up in the bad conditions of living. So, our efforts in this very life determines the outcomes in this life. For example, if someone is imprisoned because of his crimes, imprisonment is not because of past karma or a divine intervention. That is the outcome of your own bad activities. It's very clear. So, all the actions that we do in this present life may have certain outcomes, and those outcomes are not determined. Those outcomes are not very clearly defined. Good and bad actions both. Now, how do we decide a good and bad actions? Now, I am into the Buddha's teachings. I will just forget about the utilitarianism or deciding the action based on the consequences. I am explaining this based on the idea the actions innately are good or bad. So, how the Buddha has decided whether action is good or bad? If action is defiled with lust or greed, either with hatred or delusion, it is a bad action. If the action is done with a non-greed, non-hatred, non-deluded mindset, that action is considered a wholesome action. That is how he has defined that. So, now both these good and bad actions, defiled actions or undefiled actions, both can lead to two types of outcomes, beneficial outcomes and unbeneficial outcomes. Now, think about bad actions, drug trafficking for example, human trafficking. What is the beneficial outcome for the doer? Forget about the ones who becomes the victims. For the doer, easy money, right? A lot of money, not a simple amount of money, huge amount of money. That is why drug lords are superly rich. So, it is the beneficial outcome. That is why people do pursue such courses of life. It has beneficial outcomes. That benefits will be enjoyed not by himself, only by himself, but generation, the posterity to come related to his families. For example, think if my great grandfather was a drug lord and my entire generation had all was a super rich family, I cannot be blamed for what my great grandfathers have done, right? So, and I may even use this money for charity as possible, to support the world, to upgrade the world system, yes. But then if you think about the entire system, you will still find those money were looted by others and there can be a comparison, right? But there are some positive outcomes to at least to some amount of people. For the doer I am talking, effects of these actions to the doer, these are positive outcomes. That is why people follow such courses of life. If they do not give a positive outcome, none of them would follow just such courses of bad courses of life. Then at the same time, these bad actions can give ill results as well. If they were caught, convicted in the courts, you would end up in the prisons, right? And sometimes in some countries, they would even receive the capital punishment. Some countries, they execute the drug lords. Right? It's a very severe offense. So, this is a ill outcome, that risk is always there. And people getting to know your bad behaviors, the society will condemn your behavior, obviously. You are not going to get a praise from the society. Then the good actions, think about the good actions, charity, practicing a good moral life. Do they have bad outcomes? Obviously. You give, you lose, right? If you do charity, you are losing your amount of wealth that could have been used for your own benefit or for the benefit of your children. You are losing that. So, that is a bad outcome of charity. At the same time, what are the good outcomes? Your conscience would make you happy, feel, oh, someone is benefiting out of my charity. You will feel naturally happy or innocently happy about what you have done. You can recall it and say, yes, I have done something good, and you can see the benefits of your activity. You can be truly happy about what you have done. Society will start to praise you, and even it can affect positively to your companies, your businesses as well. And that is why some people do charity in order to get the attraction, right. So, positive outcomes are there. Buddha even has said this, these are positive outcomes. People will start to praise you, people will start to get attracted to you when as more you give dana, more you perform charity. So, always now the final conclusion is bad actions and good actions both can have good and bad outcomes, beneficial and unbeneficial outcomes. There is no clear cut definition for this. That is why people follow bad actions and some follow good actions, and sometimes we do both. When we do a certain action, we always think about the end result. Always, most of the time we do that. Why do we go and play cricket or any sport? Because we want amusement, we want enjoyment, right? Why do we play a piano? We want to have some satisfaction, right? So, always we think about the end goal, what this is going to give us, what is it going to give to our children. So, we think about the end result. So, always know that good and bad actions both can lead to good and bad outcomes, depending on the situation, depending on the society you are living in, depending on the country you are living in, depending on the time it was done. There are a lot of factors that decides the outcome of such actions. So, how the Buddha has defined, how the Buddha has said to decide which course of life to follow and which not to. Now, he has defined good and bad actions. If action is deluded or defiled with greed, hatred and delusion, that action should not be followed. If action is done with a non-greed, non-hatred, non-deluded mindset, yes, that action should be followed. Then how do we think about the outcomes? Beneficial outcomes through bad actions should be ashamed of. For example, if someone becomes super rich by looting the public money, that is the happiness that we gain through that should not be something we are proud of. Something to be ashamed of. In Pali we call hiri. Be ashamed of the good outcomes of bad actions. You cannot enjoy them. Your conscience would always say, this is not something right. It was not righteously earned. Then the bad outcomes of bad actions to be afraid of. That's why we are very careful not to break the laws, right? We will be fined, we will be imprisoned. Something to be afraid of, obviously. Then what about the ill outcomes of good actions? According to the Buddha's teachings, have to tolerate it. Be tolerated. Outcomes have to be tolerated. Bad outcomes have to be tolerated because you are doing something good. Then good outcomes of good actions, you can enjoy it, you can be happy about it. I earned this, for example, a monk can have spiritual happiness being a monk. At the same time, we have hardships as monks, obviously. We have to tolerate it. At the same time, we can have the spiritual happiness in ourselves. That is something that we can enjoy. We are truly happy of. For example, if someone follows a good living and earns well and comes into good living status, yes, he can be happy about his own efforts. Yes, I earned all these through my own blood and sweat, and yes, I'm happy about what I've done. Yes, that is something to be proud of. So therefore, though they leads to various outcomes, regardless of the outcome, that was the Buddha's teaching, regardless of the outcome, be aware of the goodness and the badness of the action. So in the end, what he has said is, follow good actions regardless of the outcomes. Even though they bring bad results to some extent, they also will bring good results. So thinking on them, please try to follow them. This is the outcomes of karma, of actions in this very present life. Then there is a mysterious sphere of karma, which is unique to certain religions only, which says that an action that was done, defiled or undefiled, can have an effect after some time, which cannot be investigated, which cannot be measured in terms of empirical measurements. Empirical measurements means it cannot be sensed through the 5 sense doors, not scientifically. Scientific investigations are always empirical. They can be measured. They can be redone. This is something called a spiritual aspect. An action that was done would bring results in future, maybe in a future life, a life after death. This is the mysterious part of the karma, which most people deny because it cannot be verified by any means other than spiritual development. It can be known in 2 ways mainly. By developing some concentration in your mind. It is mentioned you are able to see how the karma functions, how a being is suffering or enjoying pleasures due to the good or bad deeds that person has done. And also there is a stage in vipassana meditation, vidarshana meditation, that where you become certain about the results of karma. You become certain that this life cannot be the number 1 and the last life. There has to be a life before and afterwards based on the causes. There is a stage in which the yogi become confident and sure that this is not the only life, right? So these are the 2 stages in Buddhism where you become aware of the karma by your own self and you don't depend on the Buddha's teachings afterwards to believe in the phenomenon of karma. So before that, there is always an element of doubt within the person. Even though he or she believes on this, there is always a remnant of doubt that would come up always, doubt in this extraordinary phenomenon of karma. What does it mean? Action was done and action is gone, it was done. It leaves a certain amount of energy, non-physical energy within our mind stream that would result at a later stage. That would bring good or bad outcomes mysteriously, which we happen to call fortune or misfortune. Some religions attributed this to the God, the will of the God. Some would say this is just a random outcome. Some would say, religions such as Buddhism would say, there is a huge role played by your own actions in the past. Right? Your own actions in the past. These are the 3 doctrines. Some would say there is no such a divine intervention or no such influence of the past actions to this life. Everything is random or everything is physical. And one would say, yes, the God's decision is playing a role. If a misfortune befall you, that is, the God is testing you. religions like Buddhism and Hinduism would say, you have experienced the outcomes, your own actions done in the past. So these are the main three doctrines that we have. And they all have their own ways, but when you are observing empirically, I have to say that even as a Buddhist monk, the evidence are for the randomness. Empirically evidence are for the randomness. Only through a spiritual growth you become confident of the phenomenon of karma. About the gods belief, I am not able to say anything about that because I have not done any research or anything on that. But randomnism, you can evidence are for that, for example. I will give you a slight example on this. Now think, from a Buddhist, very Buddhist perspective, think on this. I am not arousing any doubt, but this is how one would argue. Now think, 10 people are traveling on a truck. 10 people are traveling on a truck. Suddenly, the truck fell or rolled, and all of them got out of the truck, and they rolled into onto the road, and accidentally, unfortunately, one person got hit to a tree and he died. His head was hit on a tree and he died. The other all 9 were saved. So as faithful Buddhists, how would we say that? That was his bad karma, obviously, right? We would say that that's his bad karma. Okay. Why what is the argument? Why the other 9 were saved and only he had to experience? That's the bad karma. That's the easy way of saying. Now think, yes, we say this, but be careful about this. I'm a person who supports the karma as a Buddhist monk. Obviously, that's why I'm a Buddhist, right? I believe in rebirth. Otherwise, if I don't believe in rebirth, there's no purpose of being a monk, right? I have to be very clear about this. But now think, instead of 9 humans, you put 10 coconuts into the bus, and they all fell onto the ground, and one coconut got hit on the tree. All the 9 didn't hit. What was the reason? Was it the karma of that particular coconut? No. No one dares to say that. A person who believes in randomnism, random doctrine, it's a doctrine, randomnism. If a coconut could hit on the tree because of its location physically, where it was located on the car, you can easily measure this in terms of physical measurements. Why can't you just say he got hit on the tree because he sat on that particular place? A Buddhist would say that because of karma he sat on that place, right? The debate will keep on going. In the end, you will find the karma doctrine always need an element of faith in order to believe that. Cannot be proven. That's why I said empirical evidences support randomnism. Not the karma. Obviously, I have to say that. Right? In order to believe in karma, you have to think about the world in a different way. I am not going to talk about that. How do you get the faith in karma? That's a different process. I have to talk about the nama rupas, how the mind and matter as 2 different elements, why it is not only physical, and all these I have to mention, and why the mental element has to be something that has been existing prior to this life. I have to come to that argument and talk about this. It's a very delicate topic. Anyway, so the thing is, now this karma has a capacity to, according to Buddhist teachings, has a capacity to give results in future, mysterious results in the future, right? Mysterious results in the future. So what was the Buddha's opinion on this? He was very clear on this. He said, I am telling this with my direct experiences, and he has invited us, if you want to experience this karma doctrine, I will show you a path. I am not just saying that I am the only one who could know this. No, even you can know this, but actually you have to follow a certain spiritual course Only then you will be able to know it by yourself. He has opened the gate and he has invited us. It's a matter of fact whether we follow or not, whether we go to that level or not. But he was very clear on the outcomes. He has said, in this second mysterious realm of the karma, a good action can never bring an ill result. Good action would bring always a good result. A bad action would bring always a bad result. It is impossible, monks. Attana metang anavakaso. It's impossible that a good action would bring an ill result, or a bad action would bring a good result. In the second sphere of karma. The first sphere of karma, which is related to our present life, I am not talking about ditta dhamma vedaniya karma, okay? I am talking about the effects of karma. This is the first sphere we normally don't talk. The word karma always shadows us and says something of from past life. No. The most amount of the doctrine of the Buddha is about the first sphere of the karma. He has said to monks, if you want to experience the spiritual happiness, if you want to be respected by the devotees, if you want to be respected by your brethren, follow a good sila, have a good conduct. These are just outcomes. This is what our parents have been saying us. Study well, you will have a good life. Teachers have been saying us. These are the good outcomes of the karma. But in this realm of the karma, it is not certain that a good action would always bring a good result. That's what I was saying in the beginning. Bad actions can bring both types of results, and the good actions would bring both types of results. So Buddha was of the opinion, still regardless of the outcomes, follow the good cause of life. But regarding the second sphere of the karma, which is the mysterious sphere, which can only be certainly known through spiritual progress, good actions would only bring good results, bad actions would only bring bad results. Right? So these are the two spheres of the karma. So I have done 2/3 of my talk. Right? So first is how to decide the goodness and the badness of the action. There are two opinions. Decide based on the outcome of the action, and the goodness and badness is innate. Then the two spheres of the karma based on the Buddhist teachings. Buddha was of the opinion actions themselves are good and bad. Right? Actions themselves are good and bad. So then finally we come to the fine idea. Now what to follow? Obviously, as a Buddhist, if you are following Buddhism or if you are interested in following Buddhism, what you are supposed to do is to follow good actions, and there is a list of good actions and bad actions. Like in Christianity, we have a 10 commandments, right? So likewise in Buddhism, there are kusala karma pata, good actions, akusala karma pata, actions that should not be done, dasa punya kriya, good deeds that should be done, supporting your parents, looking after your parents when they are elderly, paying the taxes properly, rajabali, supporting the family, making charity when it is possible, not harming others, not stealing even when it was possible, respect your wedding vows, not cheating on the partners, all these, not lying, always being truthful, keeping to the promises, all these are to be done. Not to be done are the opposite ones. Not to be done are the opposite ones. So here, in this regard, things that should be done physically and verbally. We have to support our family. Obviously, that is something that one should do. Support the society when it is possible. Not always can be done. But still, I'll bring you one very nice argument on this to enlighten you on this. It's a philosophical argument. Supporting the society. It will be really interesting. I'll not be able to give you a solid answer for this because philosophers think no one has ever given a solid answer for this. Think about this incident. Supporting the society. Now, in a thought experiment, another thought experiment. Someone comes and knocks at your door, maybe a friend, and says, oh, you would say, oh, welcome, come in, come in. Then you say, okay, before I come in, something happened. I just want you to know. What was it? When I was walking by the garden, there was a pond which was not very deep. I could have easily gone in and out. But a child was drowning. A child was drowning. Then what happened? There was no one there. What did you do? I couldn't get in because I thought my clothes would get wet. I don't like my clothes to get wet. So you let the child die? What to do? I just watched it, he said. How do you feel? Would you let him in? Yeah, if he's a friend, you will keep silent, but inside you will feel, get out from my house. How could you let a child die because your clothes are getting wet? Right? You had the opportunity to save. Then another friend would say, no, I saw it. Did you have the opportunity? No, I was in a ship, it was too deep, I couldn't swim. Okay, makes sense. I had to let him die, there was no way to help. Now in this incident, I could, because it was not deep enough, I could easily go down and collect the baby and come, but only thing that would happen to me is my clothes would get wet, my shoes would get wet. But I have to dry it. And I don't want to happen. Come on. This is nothing to worry. You should have easily done that. If your partner had done that, you would also think whether I will be living with such a person. Because would he save my child if something happens to my child like that? While I am drowning, would still he will save me? No one would like to be with such a person, seems like, in most of the cases, right? And inside you would know there's something wrong. So why we don't appreciate this? Now think about it. Why don't we appreciate on this? Because he could have saved him. It would have cost him something. His clothes would get wet. Okay, we know that. But compared to the outcome, it's nothing. Should have easily saved him, right? Could have done it. The water was not deep, and he had the skill, and his life was not in danger for any reason. But say, no, because that boy had a certain disease, I couldn't touch him because it would have transmitted to me. Yes, all the options, all the possibilities. But here, no damage other than wetting the clothes. Now, why do we reject the person? He hasn't done anything wrong, right? Do you think he has done anything wrong? He hasn't killed the person. He just let it die, right? But we still feel he could have saved, right? Could have done anything. Could have done something because a child. We would not talk this about ant. Okay, ant died. We would not feel about much. But a child, you should have some value to the human lives, right? That's how even a puppy would say, you would have saved it. While he had the opportunity, he let it die. Now this is the argument the philosopher brings. It's done by a Western philosopher actually. He has said, now, there are lots of children dying in Africa. You can guess where I'm coming now, right? Lots of children dying in Africa. You have lots of money in the society. You are well afforded. We still let them die. While all the possibilities are there, you could still support them to some extent. Yeah, you're going to lose something as the person would get wet. You're going to lose something, but still you can. He's not saying to sacrifice the entire wealth to those countries. But if such charity organizations are functioning, he says, this is his opinion. I'm saying what I'm saying. When such programs are functioning and there's a possibility of serving them, providing them, if someone does not, you are similar, to the person who knocked at your door and let the child die because your clothes got wet. When I say, you would think, oh, it's too far. No, there's charity organizations are there. Maybe they are not very right. They are cheating. No, some organizations are very pure. They do function properly. If such organizations, if you have the trust, then say, just my contribution is not going to save them. No, at least one would be saved, even for one day. So his argument, this is not what I'm saying, okay? He says, if you're not supporting, you're similar to the person who didn't save the child. But when I say this, you know there's something wrong in it. There's something wrong. We cannot be at fault for not doing anything. Then you'd say this is because of the governments of those countries. They have to be, come on, people are dying, right? So what I just want to say is, according to Western philosophy, no one has ever still brought a good solid argument to refute this argument, right? So just keep this in mind. Supporting the society means, sometimes we do think, we support the society. According to this philosopher's argument, no, it's not, we are not doing enough, according to him. But we know it's not practical. His argument is not practical. His argument has some fault in it, but no one has ever brought a counter argument to refute this solidly and say, this was the fault in your argument. So this argument still remains in philosophy as something that has not been refuted, which makes all of us, including myself, if some devotees offer me certain allowable requisites, I am also getting to this responsibility of supporting such people, because I am being well supported by the devotees, so I don't have any defects in my living. So if someone is supporting me, giving me some requisites, I am also supposed to support them according to his argument. So always keep it in mind. So good and bad deeds that we do, what to follow and what not to follow. Supporting the society is something that we should do. Paying the taxes is something that we should do. Supporting the elderly is something that we should, especially the parents when they are old. Supporting the family, not killing, not stealing, respecting the wedding vows, respecting the partner, not lying, being truthful. These are the things that one should follow. Or the opposites are the things that should not be followed. In this regard, while we support the others, we are doing something good for them. Another aspect of good actions is abstaining from not doing the bad. It's also a good act. Abstaining from killing, abstaining from stealing is also considered something ethically good according to Buddhism. Doing and not doing. Doing the good and not doing the bad. When the opportunity was presented to you, if you inhibit yourself from the bad activities, this is also considered something good. Inhibit the self from bad behaviors. This which we call sila, virtue, a good conduct. Good conduct means doing the good things and also abstaining from the bad. Here I am focusing mostly on not doing the bad, abstaining or inhibiting yourself, keeping your desires at bay, and regulating your behaviors under certain ethical means. So you would not violate certain ethical boundaries, which is called sila. And this can be developed into another stage, which we call meditation. So I'd like to give you another perspective on meditation. Sila is inhibiting yourself from bad actions, right? Disturbing actions that disturb others or bring harm to yourself. This also includes taking alcohol, right? Also includes taking alcohol, because why it is that? This may not be considered as something bad in certain societies, but alcohol makes you something who is incapable. Tell me a country where it is allowed for someone to drive having drunk. Tell me a country in which you can teach the students as a school teacher having taken 10, 20 shots. No. Even you are the best professor in the world, if you are found teaching in the school drunk, you will be fired next day. Why is that? Doesn't matter what type of a capacity you have, the moment you are under the influence of alcohol, you are a person who cannot be trusted. That's the philosophy behind it. You cannot be trusted that you will drive safely. You cannot be trusted that you will be the best teacher. You cannot be trusted that you will be the best policeman. You cannot be trusted giving a gun with alcohol. This is the philosophy behind it. Why it is prohibited for people to work having drunk? Cannot be trusted. It makes you someone not trustworthy. It means temporarily incapable. Right? So this is something harm for yourself, and also it can lead to harm for others. Right? So this is also prohibiting from taking alcohol is considered as a good virtue by teachers like Buddha. It gives some kind of a pleasure. Obviously, it gives some kind of a pleasure, but it's degrading yourself. It can be really addictive, and also I don't need to say about the outcomes of this. Right? So then, inhibiting ourselves from bad activities is sila. Inhibiting ourselves from bad thoughts is meditation. In meditation, you focus on one object. Forget about vipassana, I am talking about samatha, tranquility. If you are focusing on your breath, you don't let any thoughts to come into your mind. You don't entertain them. They will come, but you don't entertain them. You narrow the scope of your mind to some extent. Seems like very boring when it is being said. Actually, when the mind is well focused on one object, it becomes more active and more joyful than you can ever imagine. It's far beyond, far greater than sensual pleasures. And that pleasure which we call spiritual happiness is much greater. That's why if you have trained yourself, you are sometimes capable of sitting on the same posture even without changing a finger, posture of your finger for 5-6 hours with the same object. If it is dull, boring, no human would be able to do that. If you have seen people meditating, you can see how their faces, that is bright, and when they wake up from the meditation, you can see how different they are. So in meditation what we do, we inhibit the unnecessary thoughts and we confine it to one object. In sila what we do, we confine ourselves to moral acts, inhibiting ourselves from bad behaviors. In meditation, we confine ourselves to a certain amount of thoughts, inhibiting us from sensual thoughts. We are not going to entertain them. One learned monk has said, given a very nice simile on this. It's applicable to all of us. Think about an insane person. What is the characteristic of an insane person? Okay, insane person. If I am insane, for example, I am talking Dhamma and suddenly I move into politics. Then suddenly I go into talk about sports. Then you would find, oh, something wrong with Bhante. Something is gone out. He's not focused, not well focused. And what about a more severe insanity? If I start and remove my robes here and start to eat something, some insane person will be talking with you, suddenly he goes to the toilet, take a bath, with the soap on his body he goes out and start digging the earth, and then suddenly comes and starts eating. Half eaten he goes and starts sleeping, and you find, oh, this person, you cannot have a conversation with him, he's insane. He's like even an animal sometimes has some kind of focus nature. So this person is completely out of focus. We call surely he has a mental issue, insanity. Why is that? One of the major characteristics of insanity is, it's not applicable for every insane person. One of the major characteristics is you cannot finish any work that you have initiated. You are not well focused on that. Your mind is so much scattered. We ourselves are capable of inhibiting such behavior, and we can be well focused and be with this. But sometimes when you start studying maths, science, we suddenly go to the phone, right? Think about what was happening, right? Suddenly go to another book. A little bit of a, I would not say it insanity, less focus is obvious, right? If you observe someone, a third party would observe, and if you have a CCTV camera on yourself and record it and watch it again, you would say, oh, is this me? I cannot focus on it. I started my studies and suddenly I go to the phone and to the internet and keep on scrolling on Facebook and YouTube and then suddenly messaging someone and just forget, okay, exam is nearby, I have to study again. It's very difficult to go through 10 pages. You find it very difficult reading a book. Even sometimes we find it difficult to watch a video 10 minutes, right? We are told, even while sharing Dhamma talks, we are told, make it 7 minutes, because people cannot focus more than 7 minutes. I don't know whether it's true. Right? So, it's very difficult to focus. If you are unable to focus, if the focus is fully scattered, we call it insanity. Now think, because the insane person exhibits this insanity, less focus, with his behavior, verbal and physical behavior. So, we find it very weird. Now think about yourself. I think most of you have sat for meditation, right? What is the purpose of meditation? To focus on breath, right? Like for example, if you are focusing on breath, it's one meditation technique, okay? If you are focusing on breath, so what happens? You are focusing on breath. Next moment you are thinking what is to be cooked. Next moment what happened in the office, the discussion with your husband, with your children, what you watched yesterday in the movies, what happens in politics, what the Prime Minister told. Okay, then come back to the breath. Again, a few seconds in the breath. Again goes, what is this? Is this sanity or insanity in your mind level? This is an insanity in the mental level. Though it will not, because we are not going to act upon our thoughts. So we are not insane in the worldly sense. But if you compare yourself with spiritually developed beings like the Buddha, who could focus on one object and remain in the same object for many days without being disturbed by anything, that's called the mastery of the mind, he would surely term us, oh, this is very close to insanity. Right? So, in meditation, what we do is, we inhibit these thoughts and we develop a capacity. Doing meditation doesn't mean that you are completely cut off from the world. You develop the capacity in your mind to have the mastery over it. Whenever you want, you can focus, and whenever you want, you can take it to another object. So this is considered a good karma, because inhibiting bad activities, inhibiting yourself from bad activities is a good karma, sila. Inhibiting yourself from sensual thoughts or worldly thoughts or unnecessary thoughts is also a good karma according to Buddhism. We are generating a far greater focus and energy in your mind. And when it comes to vipassana meditation, even that concentration will be understood in terms of anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, suffering and non-selfness, and you start to understand the true natures of the life and get rid of the all attachment to the samsara. Right? So this would be my talk. So you can develop this wholesome karma to the level of meditation. I'm not going to talk the deep aspects of meditation because it's not the time here. So I talked 3 topics here. in this talk. First, how to decide the goodness and the badness of the action of an action. There are two reigning philosophical views on this. Some decides actions are decided based on the outcomes it gives. Some decides that actions themselves are good and bad. There is a third viewpoint given by Aristotle, which is called the virtue theory. Instead of saying following the actions that can bring the greatest good, or instead of following a proper conduct, ethical things, this action is good and this action is bad, he has suggested develop the student, develop the child, give him the good education, give him the good insights, and make him a good personality, so let him decide what is good and bad when he is grown up. But even in his theory, he has said education is something good. Broad apprehension is something good. So even it is aligned with the ethical theory as far as I feel it. But anyway, his theory is considered as the third view of your life, of someone's life. That is virtue theory. Instead of saying this is good or bad, instead of saying follow something that would bring the greatest benefit for the people, make him educate and let him decide according to the conditions. May develop the capacity of the child to get to do the best action that suits on that moment. Okay, so that we didn't touch upon that. So then we decided two aspects of the karma. So now according to Buddha, actions they themselves are either good or bad. So then follow the good action, that is the advice of the Buddha. But even though the good action should be followed, good and bad actions both have good and bad outcomes in this very life. But in the second aspect of the karma, Buddha was very clear on this. Good actions would bring good results, bad actions would bring bad results. And then finally, we are supposed to follow the good actions. Charity is a good action, supporting the society is a good action, taking care of your family is a good action, taking care of the elderly parents is a good action, and also inhibiting yourself from bad activities is also a good virtue. And then it can be developed to the level, inhibiting yourself time to time, at least time to time, inhibiting yourself from worldly, sensual, useless thoughts and developing a good concentration is also considered a good action. So we have to, so this is just to give you the perspectives rather than saying do this or that. My purpose was to give you a better perspective on the ethical view on Buddhist philosophy. So I wish you all the best. May you be able to follow the good activities as much as possible and finally gain the meditative experiences and finally lead yourself to be liberated from this samsara. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I will give the opportunity if you have any questions for a few minutes. Yeah. Few questions are welcome. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Nice to know that.
I won. What would be something you'd recommend everyone should do, like once a day? Whether it's some sort of mindfulness exercise or something to help you focus on, like blocking out distractions.
Yes.
Something simple that everyone can sort of achieve. Because if something's too hard, I think it's easy to give up.
Yes.
It's too far
Yes.
to get to.
Yes. Your name first. Yeah.
Luke.
Luke. Yeah. Thank you, Luke, for your question. And yes, there's a technique that personally I developed and instruct to devotees and students to focus on the breath, not based on the time, but based on the numbers. So when we breathe, we have a sensation in few places, either at the end of the nostril. For some, it can be felt at the edge of the lip, but mostly at the edge of the nostril. Sometimes at the end, at the throat, because when the air is moving. Sometimes while the lungs are expanding. Sometimes while the belly is expanding. All four occasions, all four places. At the same time, for some, there is a certain idea that I am breathing, though movements are not felt, because we know when we are breathing, when we focus. So what we are supposed to do is, when we close our eyes in a good sitting posture, we have to keep our back upright, because otherwise it is not good for your posture, for your body. and sitting up straight, what we can do is we count the breaths. We count the breaths. Whenever we feel an in breath, we count it 1. An out breath, whether you feel the breath moving out or whether you feel it is expanding or collapsing the body, we count it as a 1 breath. So for example, this is 1 breath, exhaling is a 2-second breath. 3, 4, 5, 6. So then we go for 10 till 10. So after we have achieved 10 breaths, we fold 1 finger. For example, this finger. We keep our hands like this, or sometimes you can keep it like that. Fold 1 finger. Then we go for another 10. Sometimes you may forget. You may miss certain breaths. For example, 1, 2, 3, the mind was scattering. The breath is keep on going. Breath keeps on going. Then you suddenly remember this one. Then this becomes 4th. Whatever the breath you notice, you have to count it. Right? So then the same way we reach up to 10 and then we fold the next finger. 2. So likewise, we keep on doing 10 sets, 5 sets of 10 breaths. That amounts to 50 breaths. Then another 10 sets, we unfold the finger and we reach 10 sets. That would take only around 7 to 10 minutes depending on the length of your breath. It depends on the person. 7 to 10 minutes. So this would be the daily achievement. 10 sets of 10 breaths means 100 breaths. If you can focus on 100 breaths, it is a great achievement. It's not something easy. Then what we do is, for the first 2 weeks, that is your quota. That is your quota. Then when you do it for 2 weeks, it's better to do as soon as you wake up or before you go to sleep or at any time of the day, doesn't matter, but you have to keep yourself alone and do it maybe in a secluded area. Maybe best place would be your room, right? Then what happens, we do it for 2 weeks, then we increase the number to 15 sets. 15 sets. Because by the time you reach 2 weeks, you will start to enjoy this process because it's a very short period. Because if I ask you to meditate for half an hour, no, it's not going to work for many. Because the mind will be scattered. The point here is, you are given a certain number of breaths to count, which you can measure. Human mind always needs some tasks. If a task is achieved, automatically it becomes satisfied. I have done my task. But when it comes to meditate based on the time, okay, we keep an alarm and meditate, but we know even the time has passed, my mind was scattered. We don't know whether I had a good meditation session or not, a mindfulness session or not. So we will not be satisfied. So that gives you the urge to continue. But in this technique, what happens is, you know that you have counted 100 breaths for sure. Even though the mind was scattered, you have focused on 100 breaths. Sometimes when you are meditating, the mind is having a different story. The story is going in the background, but still you are counting. Doesn't matter. In the beginning, it doesn't matter. As long as you count, in the micro level, the attention was there. Because according to the teachings, the mind cannot multitask. But we feel as we are multitasking. But in the micro level, one mind is dedicated for one task. As it is rapidly happening, with another mind, we feel as we are doing multitasking. So if you have counted while another story is going behind your mind, counting was done by a mind that was dedicated for that. So therefore, you feel like I have counted 100 breaths for sure. Because if you forget your counting, you have to start again. For instance, now you are in the 3rd set. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, now completely it went into your office or was thinking something else, and then you forgot what was the number. Okay, you don't need to start from the beginning, you start 4th set again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? Then after 2 weeks, we increase it to 15. But there has to be a discipline. What is the discipline? This has to be done every day. That's the must. I don't think anyone cannot spare 5-10 minutes in a day. This is a very short period of time. Everyone can do that. So when you do that, when you feel like, okay, 7 minutes I am doing mindfulness, this is a very good mindfulness effort. You will feel that the entire day, at least the morning session, few hours after your meditation, you feel like refreshed. It's like refreshing your computer. You'll feel the difference. Then you will increase it to 15 sets and do for another 2 weeks. The next discipline is, after you have increased the quota, you cannot reduce it. Next thing that would happen is, when you start enjoying, because when you are mindful on your breath, unnecessary thoughts will subdue and you will start to experience the spiritual bliss that will naturally would come. Don't worry, it will naturally come. When it comes, you feel, okay, I better go for another few sets. Why just 5 minutes? It's not enough for me. I could do better than this. Yes, you can go. You can go even reach some 20, 25. But some days you will feel a little bit harder or tired and you will end up in 15. Some days just you are fulfilling the 10. But the discipline is, you cannot stop. You should not stop below 10. You can go above 10 as much as you like, depending on the mindset of the day, but you have to at least count 10. When you increase the set to 15, do not reduce it below 15. You can go above as much as you like. So then every 2 weeks you increase it with 5 sets, 10, 15, 20, 25, and we reach it till 50. We don't go beyond 50. 50 sets of 10 breaths means you are capable of focusing 500 breaths, which is not an easy task, believe me. But by the time you reach 50, because you are spending 2 weeks for every quota, right? It will be 6.5 months. It's a gradual increasing we are giving. By that time, most of the yogis, some of the yogis that I have interviewed, instructed, they start to enjoy the process. Because you are increasing, because by the time you reach 50 sets, you will be meditating 25 minutes to 30 minutes. If you are asked to do it in the beginning, you feel like mind is not ready for that. But when you are increasing the quota every 2 weeks, the mind is getting ready. When you are supposed to now, in physical, when you are doing a sport, you are supposed to do some like exercises, like running and all this. Normally a good coach would increase the levels slowly. You are not supposed to run all the meters from the beginning. Slowly it will be increased, because our body needs to get used to that. So starting with 10 sets of 10 breaths, which is 5 to 10 minutes normally, depending on the person. I have seen people who do it in 5 minutes, even less than 5 minutes, because they are breathing quite faster because of their health conditions. But normally it takes around 5-7 minutes for you to complete this. Then you develop this muscle in the brain muscle, or the mind factor, mental factor of focus. And you develop it for 2 weeks with 100 breaths. Then you can go for 15 sets of 10 breaths. Then you develop it for another 2 weeks. So likewise you can increase. Then if you happen to go for 50 sets of 10 breaths, 2 weeks spending each, then afterwards we give up the counting. Because you will find, when you are focusing on the breath with the counting, sometimes your attention is to the number, not to the breath. Sometimes it is the breath, not to the number. Number is a helpful means for you to focus on the breath. In actual meditation of mindfulness, the real object is the breath. But what happens is, breath becomes very subtle and it's a very boring object to be true. It's not an entertaining object. It's not colorful, right? It's not fancy. It's just a breath body. Later on you will find when your concentration grows, breath body is something, for example, like this. Take it, a tube, goes in, goes out, like the toothpaste comes out of the tube, right? It goes in, goes out. Just a breath body is moving. And later on you will be able to focus on this entire breath body from the beginning till the end. That is a very high concentration. We don't need to think about it at the moment. So what we have to think is count. What happens is after you reach the 50 sets of 10 breaths and you have mastered the counting, if you are capable of counting 500 breaths without getting interrupted, and you feel very comfortable and ease, and your postures, body starts to feel comfortable in the sitting posture, and it will take around 6 months when you reach that level if you do it every day. And you have been meditating 180 days continuously. Mindfulness has been developed. Then you can give up the counting and you get the capacity of your mind just to focus on the breath without the help of the numbers. Then we take the stopwatch. We keep 20 minutes timer, and then we just, without counting, we start to observe the breath, which should be a harder task, but the mindfulness would increase. So likewise, you can increase the minutes as much as you like. Normally, in our sessions, we take it till 1 hour, right? For the monks, people who are dedicated in meditation. But as you said, we can look, right? Yes, we can increase, at least we can do 10 sets of 10 breaths, and we can reach it for 30 sets, 40 sets, something like that. That will be really, really helpful in your day-to-day lives. Yeah, any questions? Yes. Yeah.
So when monks in life, we have different experiences with different people.
Yes.
When someone hurts us, what's the best way to
Sorry, I beg your pardon. Someone
if someone hurts us,
hates us. Yeah.
hurts,
Okay. Hurts.
there's something wrong.
Okay.
You
Okay.
forgive.
Yeah. Your name? Yeah. Nathan. Nathan. Yeah. Nathan. Thank you for your question. Obviously, it's a good question. It's something that we experience in day-to-day lives, right? If someone has hurt you, how do you move on, right? I'll give you an extreme example which I encountered in an interview. I'll then come to this practical level of this, because this is an extreme example that was given in an interview by a Norwegian father of whose son was killed by a serial killer. Okay. Then we'll come to this practical thing. First I'll go to this extreme example. He was interviewed by an American journalist, and in Norway, I don't know in Australia, in Norway the maximum punishment is 16 years imprisonment. Is it more than here? Even for killing, it's 16 years.
Here we have more.
You have more, right? But you don't have capital punishment, right? No, not. So in Norway, it's 16 years maximum for whatever crime they have done. The idea is they should be given another chance in life. A person's life should not be executed for whatever he has done. So then, this now they have this guy has done what this guy has done. He's not killed one child. Children were in a holiday. They were in a picnic in an island, and this guy, would say a crazy guy, he came with a gun, and he just openly shot at the children. Right? Many were killed in the island, because they were in an island, so they had to swim. They had to swim, right? They had to swim to the shore in order to save themselves. Then this interviewed father's child was also killed, and somehow they made it sure that the person was imprisoned. He was given the full punishment, and he was given the full punishment because he has killed. You cannot justify just going and shooting at children. You cannot defend yourself, right? It's impossible. And he was given the full punishment, and he's in the prison for 16 years. Now the American journalist was asking this father 2 questions. He asked, would you be happy if your child had a gun with him that day? This is father talking, okay? Child, the son, children are the most precious thing to the parents, regardless of the nationality. We all know that. So he said, rather than having a gun, I would like if my son could swim that day, rather than staying with his friends. Maybe he stayed there to save his friends. Eventually he got killed. I prefer if he had swam that day. Then the next question he asked, now think, that man comes in front of you and you are given a gun. And you are given the opportunity. Okay, you are given the opportunity. You are not going to be punished. Would you kill him? So his answer was, he did something wrong, he didn't have the right to kill my son. But at the same time, I don't have the right to kill him. Right? This was a very extreme example. I think parents, fathers would feel that how difficult it would be. Child was killed. He has done nothing, no wrong at all. Innocently killed. An innocent child was killed. And father felt, still I have to maintain my ethics. I hope this gives a big message. If even someone has hurt you, always keep it in mind. Hurting someone shows that maybe it was deliberate. Sometimes we get hurt by others' activities, they being not aware of that. Sometimes it happens. Only when we say I got hurt, they recognize, oh, has it hurt you? I'm very sorry. Then we can come into terms and understand, yes, that was a mistake. But sometimes deliberately people hurt others. Hurting others shows that that person has a mean attitude, even at that moment. He may be a very good person overall, but given the defilements that we have, we as human beings, sometimes we have the nature of hurting others. Especially when it comes to when people are given the power, it is said. You can expect them to have completely different sides. You are expected to see a different side of the person. When it comes, especially when it comes in relationships, sometimes we see in a relationship, some person have the upper hand over the others. So they given the power unconsciously. So sometimes they do hurt others. Especially it happens in breakups, whatever. So, but whatever way it was done, if it was done deliberately, that shows the mean nature. We are not supposed to label the person mean because of one activity. That's another thing that we have to keep in mind. A person cannot be labeled as mean because of one activity, because we ourselves know sometimes we had bizarre desires and sometimes we do make mistakes as human. Is to human, right? To forgive is divine. That's how it's been said by the ancients. Is to human, to forgive is divine. So we first of all we have to keep it in mind. Just because of one incident, we are not supposed to label the person good or bad. Person's character is determined by the long course of his life. Think about someone who is playing rugby or cricket. He played a very good game. He said, okay, this player should be in the team and this should be a permanent member. No, that's not how a career is being decided. A good player one becomes a good player or a bad player or an average player based on how we perform for a longer period during his career, right? Not because of just one match. It's just a one match. So likewise, sometimes because of, especially when it comes to relationships, it's bound with emotions. Emotions can make it very dirty. When it comes to friendships, yes. When it comes to employees and employers, the money is involved. Money makes things very strange, right? So dirty things can happen. But that doesn't mean we are not supposed to label the entire life of the person because of one fault. That's the first thing that we have to keep in mind. Then, yes, if the hurt was done deliberately, that shows the mean attitude. Even under that context, for that moment, there was a mean attitude. The person who deliberately hurt the other would know that, yes, I did it purposefully. He or she may have his reasons for that. But hurting means you are not respecting the other's feelings. That is what is shown. You have not respected the other's feelings. Right? I am not talking about a teacher or a parent punishing or being harsh on children. That is to correct them. Children may not understand it. I am not talking about this. That is not a mean attitude. Discipline is not abuse, right? Discipline is something different. We are talking about, I assume you are talking about something different, like hurting, deliberately hurting. It's not about discipline. So that shows the mean attitude. So then it's the matter of fact is whether we are going to hurt them back. If we hurt them back from a third party, I would say you are falling back into the same mean attitude of the other person. That's the next point. So that's what the Norwegian father said. He did something that he should not have done. He didn't have the right to take my child's life. At the same time, if I kill him, I'm also doing something that I am not supposed to do. I don't have the right to take his life even. Right? So first thing is, if we are hurting them back, we are downgrading ourselves. That's the next point. So it's a matter of fact whether we hurt them back. Then think about this, another very important factor. Think long. Hurting back means you are giving them another punch. In the short term, you will feel relieved. Okay, I took the revenge, I avenged him. But if you have not taken the revenge, in the long term, the complete game changes. You comes into the upper hand, you gets the upper hand in the situation. Because the one who hurt would be happy temporarily. We are not going to have, as human beings, we are not going to have intense emotions for a long period. That is a psychologically proven fact. Human beings cannot maintain intense emotions for a long period. We come into the normalcy all the time. The person who has hurt you will be happy for some time, but when it comes to the normalcy, they would feel, okay, I have done something wrong, but he did not react. Because actions themselves has innate goodness and badness, as Buddha has taught. Not hurting back is a good moral quality. Eventually, you will be upgraded automatically to a higher position. When a third party listens to the story, he or she hurt me, but I didn't react. Oh, what do you think? For what you need more strength? When someone is hurting, okay, if the someone is very powerful, if the government is hurting you, you cannot hurt the government back, well, that's a different case, right? In a day-to-day life, someone hurt you, what needs more strength, physical, mental strength? Hurting back or tolerating? Tolerating needs a lot of mental strength. Because Temptation is there, hurt the person, it will justify your anger. But you are able to tolerate that. You are winning a war within yourself. And that would make you more attractive to the people. Because he is a person who is stable even in adverse conditions. If I say this in a more worldly sense, a stable male is more attractive to females, right? Because they would understand he has the capacity to take the adversity and to still pursue the correctness of the life. So therefore, hurting back would give you some relief temporarily, but in the long term, when your emotions go down, you will never be able to be happy about it. But if you were able to tolerate it, overcome this, you will be very happy. So how to overcome? That's the next question. Consider about these consequences. I always recall this Norwegian father's explanation because it was even beyond my capacity to be true. That was really, really mind-blowing to me. And then Buddha has said, there is a verse in our teachings. If you hurt back a person whom you hurt back, who hurts you, you seems to be the mean person. Because he lost his mind and he hurt you, and you could have stopped it. You are hurting back. So don't bring yourself to that position of that person. You deserve better than that. Then finally, in the long term, believe it or not, you will get the upper hand in this conflict between the two, as long as you don't make a fault. So if you contemplate on this, obviously people will be able to move forward from this. That's my advice or my suggestion. Okay, so. Yes. Right. Yes. So another way to there are many ways how can you get rid of anger. Visuddhi Magga, one of the books in our tradition, has said 13 ways to get rid of the anger if someone has hurt you. I was just telling few of them, right? So another way to contemplate is, yes, it is natural for humans to make faults. Even we ourselves have made faults. So when you contemplate it as a natural law, because for example, there is a psychological effect called commonness of the adversities. When Kisa Gautami brought her child who was dead, she couldn't accept the fact that her child was dead. What the Buddha said? Go and find. No, she said she wanted her child to be alive again. Buddha, no, you cannot bring back a dead person alive, right? Then what the Buddha said is, go and find me some mustard seeds from a house where no one has died, even in their lineage, even among their forefathers. So the entire lineage, no one has died. So she went to every house, everyone was willing to give her mustard seeds to save the child. But when she asked the second question, has anyone died in your lineage, in your generations, past generations? Obviously, the ones who are dead is more than ones who are alive. Grandfathers, great-great-grandfathers, everyone has died. So when she kept on going from house to house with the expectation of getting mustard seeds from a house where no one has died, she understood death is inevitable and is common to everyone. People have died, right? Obviously from some houses, some must have said, who will not die? Someone would have surely said that. So then what happened? She started to understand this is not something which has happened only to myself. That would also ease the pain. There's another point. That would also ease the pain. Because when you see some others are also suffering like you do, you feel, oh, it's not only me who is being the victim. That's another way of contemplating, right? Because these things, people have hurt others. It's not only I got hurt in this world. There are many people who got hurt more than this. Think about the Holocaust, the Second World War. What kind of a misery they had compared to them. I'm 1,000 times lucky. I was hurt because maybe a bad word or maybe someone cheated on me. Come on, this is nothing compared to what they have experienced. I'm still alive. I can still have a new life. I still continue. But some didn't have the opportunity of living. Like they were killed, brutally killed, and that was a violation of human rights, obviously. So now you think like that, the common sense, commonality of the adversities, yes, that would also ease your pain. Another way to contemplate, even I myself has this element to hurt someone else. I'm not hurting because of my mindfulness, because of my goodness. I'm able to suppress my desires, but still I could do the same thing. But that person was unable to do it because he couldn't restrain himself, and he or she thought that would bring the best outcome. Then they hurt me. When you think about the psyche of the people, yes, I also have that capacity, but I'm inhibiting it. But he or she couldn't do that. That was the reason, that was the difference between both of us. But both of us could have come to the same level. Even I could hurt someone more than this. Right? If we unleash our anger, I can be more harsh than this. So the difference is I was able to suppress this. So she or she couldn't do that. So that's the difference. So when we see this commonality between both of us, then we also feel, okay, this is something that could have happened. And another way to do it, if someone has hurt, but sometimes we want to keep distance. So in that sense, it's not better to do this. But sometimes people have hurt you and we still want to maintain a good relationship. A good advice that was given is offer something, give something, give a gift. Sometimes they would refuse, but so you have to be very smart on how to do it, right? Right? You have to be very smart on it. But otherwise you would get embarrassed after refusing a gift, getting refused a gift. So if you offer something and if the person accepts it, that is also going to downgrade the situations. So there are many ways, and also another way to think is, think about the good qualities of that person. Monks sometimes can use discarded robes, clothes to make our robes, which we call pansukula chivara. There is one practice that monks make their robes with the discarded clothes. Some clothes are smeared with dirt. You are not going to take the entire cloth and make it. What we do is some clothes in those days, olden days, sometimes you cannot clean the cloth as we can do now. So what they do is they step on the bad part and tear the good part and take the good part and make the robe. So likewise, you forget about the person's bad qualities. Just focus on the good qualities. What he or she has done to me, what he or she has done to the society and to their families. Okay, when we'll start to see a good aspect of the person, then you can get rid of the anger. So there are many ways that you can do in this regard. Yes. Yes, sure. Oh, I didn't see you were there. Okay.
It's probably more a tangent of thoughts because I can't formulate the questions, so I'm trying to actively just
Okay.
listen
Yeah.
to you. But my mind was going to, when you said about meditation and you want to go beyond that because it's maybe not a conversation for now. And it takes me back to when you were talking about sort of like the first inner circle of karma in this life and then the outer one in, future lives,
Yeah.
whatever it may be. And then going back to your thought
Yeah, okay.
You know, we came up with a scenario where you said, let's say they were, you know, the person couldn't swim or they would drown if they tried to save a child, or the child had disease and they would be infected, and you made the remark, fair enough. I don't know if that's the sentiment you're trying to voice as a layperson would see it, or if it's the Buddhist view when you say fair enough.
That would be the social norm.
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So then my understanding then is the Buddhist view would be that it is not fair enough, and that our capacity is more dictated by not actually what we think, what we perceive it to be. It's more driven by a level of selfishness, because if we choose that the ultimate value, and it seems like you're saying that, because I don't know about Buddhism, but it seems that to not kill seems to be, is it at the top?
Yeah, something at the top, more or less, yes.
So then it kind of says we're meant to value instead the sanctity of life,
Mhm.
which then means that whether or not it was in a deep ocean or a puddle, that our aim should be to save that child. Because if you, even if it was in deep waters and you can't swim, if you leave the child, they're 100% going to drown. But if you dive in, there might be a chance that you survive.
Right.
That's your obligation to preserve the sanctity of life. So would it mean when you're talking about in this life there are inherently good and bad things, but good and bad things can both have a level of good and bad outcomes as well? So in that instance of the drowning, let's say you have a family and it was in deep waters, you might go, I have an obligation for young kids, if you're a father or something. It's unlikely I can save this child, I'll watch it drown, because I have to look after my children. So there's a bit of a hierarchy of thought processes. But it seems that inherently, so in the first realm of karma, there are good things to it and there are some bad things because there are bad outcomes. But then does it mean that in the second realm, you haven't fulfilled that ultimate goal of a good action, which is to preserve life, and therefore it's unfortunate, but a reality of life that you will have to pay back karma for not having chosen the option this time?
Is your name?
Shanali.
Shanali. Okay. Shanali, yes. Thank you for your question. And it was, I also felt like my talk was not very focused, seems like, because I gave so many scenarios. Yeah. Anyway, it was a well constructed question. Thank you for that. First of all, we should know that yes, preserving the life or saving, not killing others' lives is something somewhat in the top of the Buddhist teachings. But it is not an obligation to save the lives. His obligation is not to destroy the lives.
But are you not destroying it by not saving it?
You are not doing that, right?
You don't know that you'll 100% die. But if you
You are not the cause for his drowning, right?
you are, if you observe and let it happen.
In terms of law, yes.
But then
I hope are you a law student? No. No. Okay, right. So in law, yes, it's a fault,
sure.
right? Because my father is a lawyer,
Okay.
right? According to what he said to me once when I was talking about these things, if I'm committing suicide here now, telling you that okay, this is the poison, I'm going to suicide, and you all of you let me die, you all are to be punished according to Sri Lankan law for not preventing it. You know that, right?
Yeah.
You have to prevent it. So according to law and according to social norms, yes, what you are saying is perfectly correct. You are obliged to preserve the life. But according to Buddhism, it's not an obligation. Okay. So what I'm saying, I'm very perfect on these Buddhist teachings. Obligation is not to kill. Preserving lives is called abhaya dana in Buddhist teachings, which is an additional good quality. I'm just confining my answer to the Buddhist teachings, okay? It's an additional good quality. Abhedana. Bodhisattva, know about the word? Before the Buddha got enlightened, he practiced in many lives to become a Buddha. That long-term practice in many lives, he was called the Bodhisattva, who is training himself to be a Buddha one day in a future life. According to the stories, he has done this in many occasions, saving others' lives, which is an additional good quality, and he became a very noble person because he saved the others' lives, even risking his own life. But according to the Buddha's teachings, the obligation is not to destroy, there is no obligation of saving. That's the first thing.
So even in the instance of the boy being
Yes, I know that. It's a very,
it means that ultimately we cannot frown upon that person because
we cannot.
we can't look down upon that person because it's not, he doesn't, it's like we can say, well, it's just a puddle, just who cares, get your head under any clothes.
I understand your point.
Let's say it was hydrophobic or something.
Right, right.
So to him was the end of the puddle.
Yes.
But if we're saying ultimately we're not throttling the kid and, killing them, we're observing their death, then in that instance we also have to say it's the same thing as
Yes.
being in the ocean.
For example, yes, what I said is, if we strictly adhere to the fundamentals, the obligation is not to kill, not to save, is not about saving, but on such instances, even the Buddha would encourage you to save the child. There's no doubt about that, right? But according to that, you are doing something extra, right? If we just follow the standards and ask, did he commit any unwholesome karma by just watching the person dying? According to teachings, no. I'll bring you a much better perspective on this. We are not only focused on human life here, right? Okay. Now think about an ant is drowning. We are going for a wedding. Okay, it's still alive, right? Most of people would not step onto the pool and save the ant, right? Right? So, we humans normally value human lives more than other animals' lives. Right? So, why is that? We have considered, but for the ant, no. That is my life. That is my. If he had the capacity to say something, he would say, no. That's why if you touch the ant, they would keep on running, right? No one gets to get killed, right? Everyone fears danger. So when it comes to ants, creatures, insects, then we feel, okay, this ant is not going to harm me. Okay, cockroach, it was harmful to me. Some would kill it. He has a justification. But the ant, not harmful to anyone, but it's still a living being. Should I step on and recover it, save it? Or am I at fault for letting it die? Another point. I am giving just perspectives, okay? This is applicable when we are constructing a road. When you are constructing a house, obviously a lot of creatures are killed, right? Insects are killed, right? Governments would not let a puppy to die, would not let a bird nest to get destroyed. Some people would not let it happen, especially with social media. They will surely make it sure that the nest is not destroyed. But when it comes to insects, it's more severe. We know they are going to be killed, but we would say, I don't have the intention of killing them, I'm just building the house. Inevitable, you cannot stop them dying, but still they are dying. So what Buddhism says about this? Buddhism talks about life in ultimate sense. It's not about only killing humans, killing any animal is the precept, right? We cannot deprive any being of their lives. That's why Buddhism is very special among many religions, not all religions. Why is that? Because it treats every life equal. It treats every life equal. but there are certain changes. For example, a monk killing an ant, a monk killing a human. If I kill a human, I lose my monkhood. If I kill an ant, I can confess and purify my sila again. So it also has treated them separately. Human killing is more severe in Buddhism, a hierarchy, right? But in the overall, in the general precept, all living beings should not be killed. Any living being should not be killed. So now, what happens in farming? In countries like Sri Lanka, they have to burn the forests to prepare the lands for farming. And farming is considered, in ancient India, that's how it, even today that's how it's done. Farming is considered a righteous livelihood in Buddhism. While farming, we dig the earth, a lot of insects are destroyed, you cannot prevent it. And that's a fact. If someone believes, no, we are following ways not to prevent killing the insects, I'm not talking about using the chemicals to destroy them, no. I'm just saying when we prepare the fields, because using chemicals we have the intention to kill the animal, that is a sin, no doubt about that, because you are using it purposefully to kill the bee. But here we are preparing the fields, we have to burn the trees. Trees are not considered living according to Buddhism, right? So when we prepare the fields, we are very much sure that certain beings will be killed, no doubt about that. But still it is considered as something, a righteous livelihood according to Buddha's standards. Why was it? Because he did not have, the person does not have the intention of burning the animals. His intention is to prepare the land. But eventually it would lead for the destruction. This is much severe than letting the person to die, because my actions are the direct effect of the destruction, though I don't intend that. That's why when we walk, we step on animals, creatures, and we know there are a lot of creatures will be killed. I don't know whether you have much insects here, but in our countries we have a lot. So they will be killed. We know that, but still we walk. If someone asks as a monk, you are stepping on many insects, I said, I don't have the intention of killing them. Otherwise, how can I live, I would say, right? So as long as I don't have the intention of killing, even though my action results in the death of a living being, still is not considered as killing. I know you can construct a very strong question against me on this, right? I know that when your ball eyes are rolling, I know that, right? So I'll give you the question. Don't worry, you don't need to ask me that. Now what happens is, now for example, you are driving a car, okay, or you are burning a land. Now a family is living there, for example. A family is living there without, okay, I don't intend to kill them. I'm just intending to burn the forest. He set the fire. The family is burned. And he starts farming. Someone asked, now ants, same scenario. In the place of ants, if there were humans, in the place of ants, we burn the forest and created the paddy field, right? Ants were killed. In the place of ants, if there were humans, Bhante, how would you treat? Has the person done any sin? Technically speaking, okay? Technically speaking, if the farmer didn't have the intention of killing, if he did not commit any sin by burning ants, because his intention was to make the ground, formula is every life is equal. If there were humans, if his intention was to prepare the land, technically he has not committed any sin. Technically speaking. You cannot say this in the courts, you will be punished for that, for sure. Right? And I myself would not encourage it, even I myself would never do that. But technically speaking, there is a difference between killing, knowing that the act would result in death. There are two things.
So, but if he knew there's a family living there,
that's why I'm saying.
He knew that they were there and then he knowingly killed them.
That's why we know ants are there, right?
Yeah, ants, you know they're there, but you can't see most of them. A family of human beings, you can.
You do think the farmer would not see an ant?
No, he would, obviously, but.
That's right. So what happens is, this question is based on your. I appreciate your questions. We are grading the lives here.
As a practicality.
It's practicality, giving the human race the higher position, right?
But as you said, Bhante, it's the compassion should be limitless.
Yeah. Now, yeah. Just don't take it as I'm not suggesting this. Don't take it as I'm suggesting this. If you take it the formula, burning the paddy field to prepare it for farming, knowing that there are ants, if it is not a sin, okay. This was asked from me by a Spanish student once. When I said this, he just came and, if there were humans, what would you say? Technically speaking, you replace the ants with humans. If burning was not a sin, okay, technically it's not a sin, but it's not. It cannot be done, obviously, right? These are the technicalities I'm talking about. So what I want to say, what I want to enlighten you is on this fact. There is something called the intention to kill. There is something called knowing my act would end in the destruction. That's two different things, according to Buddhism. There is a Vinaya rule for us. I'll give you more perspective on this. This water contains larvae, mosquito babies, right? Aquatic beings. They cannot live on the ground, okay? So I know it contains larvae. We have two rules regarding this. Now Buddha was very clear on this. If I pour this water intending to kill them, I am breaching a one offense. That's called 61 Pachitya offense. If I pour this water to use it for construction without the intention of killing the larva, I am violating a different offense. That's number 20. If I use the same water containing larva for my own consumption, not drinking but for taking bath, that is considered violation of rule number 62. So he was very clear on this. If you had the intention of killing the larva, you are technically killing him, because you know they cannot survive, you are just throwing it away, you kill them. It's an act of killing. Even though you are throwing the water, your intention to kill the larva. But on the second occasion, my intention is to pour the water, use the water, but knowing that larva would be killed. So on this offense, there are 4 factors. The water should contain larva, the monk should know it contains larva, and should know that the larva would not survive on the ground, knowing that they would die. Third factor, no intention of killing and pouring. Got the point? So according to Buddhism, knowing that it's going to kill doesn't amount to the intention of killing. Intention of killing is something, knowing that your act would result in a death is something else. So now come back to the child's action. This is much further, because it's not my action. I have no responsibility on this. I'm just letting the child die. So according to that, there's no sin at all, right? Even if I don't have the intention, now for example, pouring the water for some other purpose, knowing that the larva would die, it is mentioned in books. Even a Rahatan Vahanse, Arahant could do that. Do you know about the Rahatan Arahant? Real ignorance on that. Okay, Arahant is the one who is fully enlightened, right? A monk who has reached the highest level, not the Buddha, highest level, even he can do that.
Although he possesses the knowledge
Yes, yes, because what he doesn't have is he doesn't have the intention to kill. Right? Okay. So I know this confusion. When we are going to apply this, yes, when it comes to small larvae and creatures, still we can tolerate it. But when you replace the creature with a human being, this seems something too much for us, right? So that is, I just want to mention you, this is mainly because we respect our own race more than the other creatures. If, for example, a practical example, there are a lot of slaughterhouses, cow slaughterhouses, chicken, right? A lot of slaughterhouses. I think billions of creatures are being killed every day for the consumption of humans. If in one country, if you find out a group of humans are slaughtering another group of humans for their consumption, even in Australia, you would start protesting, right? They are not your relatives, they are not your neighbor, they have no relationship with you. What is the reason behind it?
They're all human.
It's our race, right? Our race, okay, obviously, right? We are the dominant creatures, obviously. So if, I don't know how the Buddha would answer this question, it's a good one that you raised, right? So practically, we would never do anything if a human is harmed. As monks, we would never do. But technicality, if someone asks the technicalities, human life and non-human life are both, when it is both treated equally, that's what it comes. That would be the outcome. So therefore, he is not creating any akusala for doing that, for letting it to happen. But if he saves the person, that would be a greater good deed that he's been doing, is something that is bonus. But as a monk, but we are told, for example, if anyone is drowning, we are supposed to save the person. We don't let the person die. But regarding our vinaya, like if it's a female, how do we act? If it's a male, how do we act? We have our own protocols, but we are supposed to save the person. So normally we are told, if a human is dying, we would not say if an ant is dying, you don't put that much effort. If a human is dying, we are supposed to save the person. So even in our context, we treat the human race more especially than the other races, other animals. But technically speaking, when you are coming to karma, social norms doesn't matter. Karma is a phenomenon going on, so it doesn't treat human and animals differently. So that would be the outcome.
Sure, so ultimately, intention has some impact, but inherently there's a bigger picture that happens whether you like it or not. And then when meditation is the idea that you come to some equilibrium of thought, so you can instead of perceive life, you observe life.
Then you are talking about the meditation. I was talking about just one-pointedness. I was talking removing the sensual thoughts and developing mindfulness, as Luke asked, right? Just developing mindfulness on one object and developing a concentrating capacity. But the meditation that you are talking, which we call insight meditation. So insight meditation and some other tranquility meditations, yes, we start to see now in mindfulness, breath mindfulness meditation, we don't have any extra thought patterns. We are just focusing on some process which is going on. But when it comes to loving kindness, we are spreading loving kindness. We start to see all the human beings in a different way. We start to see the equilibrium we are bringing in, and we start to see every being as equal. So these are different meditation techniques. When we go into the insight meditation technique, we start to see in Buddhism humans not as humans. We start to see them as elements. We start to see a phenomenon called non-selfness. I think you have heard about it. We start to say there's no self, no innate person. There's no personality. It's just a bunch of elements that are functioning. So that would be the final outcome of meditation.
Thanks for indulging.
Okay, sadhu. Okay, yeah.
One question.
Okay.
Based on your talk, like you said that we have should be like humans or good citizens?
Or you're asking me?
Yeah.
You put me in trouble, Abjul. Right, so, I don't know how to answer. If I say to be according to Aristotle, you cannot be both. You cannot be both according to Aristotle, right? So as a monk, I have to say be a good human being, right? That would be my obvious answer, because I would never encourage war, right? I cannot encourage war. so my answer would be to be good humans, to follow good ethics. So that's why normally there's for me there's a certain I feel like there's a belief that don't get offended by this actually. So some believe that Buddhism is obviously a practical religion, no doubt about that. Being a monk, I know that how it benefited my life and the life of the ones who are connected to myself. But can it be a social religion? Can it be entirely applicable to the society? If someone asks this question, this is one of the biggest obstacles that it faces. Because when you completely understand Buddhism and apply into oneself, we call he gets enlightened, fully enlightened. According to the teachings itself, after you get fully enlightened, you eradicate all the greed, all the attachment, no sensuality, no anger. What will be the outcome? You will not be able to stay more than a week in the household life. You become a monk or a nun. Full application of Buddhism would eventually make everyone recluses. Okay, society is going to fall. In terms of society, is this wrong? In terms of Buddha's perspective, this is what he wanted actually. Okay, I'll come to that point. I'll give you another good thought experiment on this. So, because for example, if someone asks, how do we treat war according to Buddhism? Come on, how can you answer this? How should we treat war? War should not be waged. That's the only answer we can say. Is Buddhism applicable for Hitler? It's a very big question in ethics, because we have good and bad. According to Kantian ethics, can you follow these ethics to treat Hitler? Should the Nazis be stopped or not? Did the Allies did a good job or not? Forget about all the conspiracies. But in the end, they had to be stopped, right? With how they did it, okay, it's a different case. But was it good or bad? Can you give a solution for this through Buddhism? Okay, go to Hitler, talk with him, try to convert him, make him a very good leader. Would it be possible? Come on. It will be practical, right? Right? So therefore, I'm of the opinion, personal opinion, this is not a religion that can be fully applied in the society. Right? Because if I claim that, you'll be raining questions. A lot of questions will be asked. You'll be shooting with me with lot of questions. What you do this? What you do on this occasion? What you do on this occasion? Right? Because full application of Buddhism into one's life makes you a recluse. Then this comes to the question: what did the Buddha? Is Buddhism completely a inapplicable religion? No, these are different. No, not at all. It's applicable. It is true. If you apply Buddhism thoroughly and fully into your lives, you cannot live a household life. That's also very clear. That's why the Buddha himself left the household. He gave up kingship, a beautiful wife, a good child, and a huge retinue, lots of concubines, and a harem, and a big kingdom, citizens who were waiting to take the kingdom for him to become the king. He gave up all and became a recluse. Right? So there was a huge debate while the Buddha was alive. Because the elite youngsters were becoming his followers and getting ordained. The question was raised, you are depriving the society of the elite youngsters. And also you are destroying our generations of the posterity. How we are going to last like this if everyone becomes recluses? Especially this accusation came when Sariputta and Moggallana became monks. 250, elite 250 youngsters ordained under the Buddha. But this was a huge problem. The Buddha said the answer was, I never say anyone to come and ordain under me. They are the ones who come and request. That was his answer. Okay, he saved himself with the answer. Right. According to Buddhism, now we are going to depths of Buddhism. I'm connecting this answer related to your question actually. If you go into depths of the Buddhism, according to Buddhism, life is suffering. It's a combination of mind and matter. The mind and matter arise and pass away, and it continues, the lineage continues after death, and it keeps on happening, and this cycle of rebirths would never end as long as it is never deliberately ended. And it has been happening without a beginning. There's another very interesting philosophical topic. Without a beginning, and it has been there forever. Even the world cycles have worlds have destroyed and emerged. The life has been there, and we have been in the samsara, and there's no self or soul entity that you can call yourself. That's the point here. So Buddha's advice is to end this life. End this life means not to suicide yourself. What he is saying is, stop the rebirth. When we die with craving, you cannot prevent another birth. Another birth is accumulation of suffering, because there is no entity going from life. It's a very interesting topic. It should be a different talk actually, right? And this continuation of mind and matter in the new life is another continuation of suffering. So prevent it from happening. How do you prevent the next life happening? Prevent the craving. Craving is the which causes the next life with karma. You cannot destroy the karma. Karma gives a birth when there is craving to live. So stop craving, destroy craving. How to destroy craving? Why craving is there? Because we are ignorant about the life. So we are attached to these lives very much. So bring the insight, understand the world, remove the ignorance, no craving. When there is no craving, past karmas cannot give a rebirth. That's the end of the suffering. Then the obvious question which was asked, you are destroying the living being. If there is no rebirth, what happens to the being? He had an answer for that. I'm not destroying any living being. Before accusing me, show me the living being in the first place. If you show me the living being here, whether it's the mind or the matter or the combination of the mind or the matter, or which element of the mind or which part of the body is you, show me the identity, the problem of identity, which is a huge philosophical issue. So there's no identity. So how am I destroying the living being? But there is something. It's not nothing. Mind and matter exist. Mind itself is not a self. Matter itself is not a self. They are acting in combination. They are rising and falling. They are acting, existing in generations or lineages. So what happens is, we are preventing a new lineage or a birth due to this process. So what he is stopping, because if this process is a suffering process, this is a non-self process, he is preventing the happening of a non-self process which is suffering. He is not destroying you, or he is not destroying I. He is not destroying a living being. That was his answer. In order to destroy a living being, show me a living being. I don't possess a car. How can you destroy my car if I don't possess a car? That's an invalid question, right? If there's no living being according to him, he's not destroying a living being. What exists is a nama rupa, mind and matter process, which is non-self. He's not letting it to happen. This is the point. So according to him, if we follow his teachings, to an extreme level, that's why people become monks, rebirth is not going to happen, right, if you achieve that task. So when this was said, obviously my father asked me this question. I was saying this, then how can we exist if everyone become a monk? If everyone become arahants, how the world would exist is an obvious question that would ask. I think many of you have this question. I would rather say this is a very badly constructed question. I don't know whether there are any doctors here. Okay, you are a doctor. Yeah, no? Did you raise your hand? Sorry. I thought you raised your hand. Sorry. Right? So, from a doctor, okay, doctors are treating diseases, right? If I say to a doctor, when he is treating the diseases, be careful. If you keep on treating the diseases like this, and if you treat all the diseases in the world, you cannot make any living. Your job exists as long as the diseases exist in the world. So you are doing something contradicting. Listen to this argument. I know you find this is very badly constructed argument. I know your feeling. If I say a doctor is treating the diseases, and if I say you are treating the thing that gives you the livelihood. Now another extreme thought experiment. The doctor is given a pill or a vaccine. If he applies this to the patient at the birth, the child would never experience any sickness. Eventually he will die at the end of the life. Would the doctors give this medicine to the humans? Because afterwards there is going to be no sickness in the world. So it means no use of doctors, right? Okay. Doctors are ethically bound to do that, right? I don't know whether everyone would agree with that, because there's no use of a doctor afterwards. Even though it's impractical, this is a thought experiment, right? So if I say to a doctor, you are treating the disease which helps you to earn the money. So be careful, doctor. If you are going to treat all the sicknesses in the world, you are going to lose your livelihood. The doctor would say, okay, your argument is valid, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And they would say, the best counter argument for this would be, no Bhante, this is not how we should put argument. Disease should be cured, regardless whether the doctor have a livelihood or not. Disease is something to be cured. That's why there is occupation called, that's why doctors are needed to the society. Whether you solve all the disease, whether the doctors lose their occupation or not is irrelevant. If the disease is an issue, is a problem for humankind, it should be solved. Forget about the occupation. Now bring back to the Buddha's argument. According to Buddha, what is suffering? The life itself. It starts with birth, it ends with death, and it keeps on happening. If it is just one life, these things would be okay, but if it is repeatedly happening again and again, that's what he found as the suffering. This is a useless process, he said. Life itself is a problem. Then the people are asking, if everyone gets enlightened, what happened to the society? Come on. Treat the life as a disease to the doctor. Diseases should be treated and solved, cured. If lives are suffering, take the Buddha as the physician. What would be his ultimate goal? To cure the diseases, to prevent the rebirths. If a good doctor, if someone finds a medicine that would prevent all the sickness in the entire humankind, A good doctor has to raise both the hands and say, yes, please give it. This is why I became a doctor. My noble goal is to solve the sicknesses, cure the sicknesses. If this cure the sicknesses, I'm very happy about that. That would be the thought process of a noble doctor. And if you ask this question from the Buddha, what happened to the society? The society is running. Society is a bunch of collection of humans. Human life itself is suffering according to his standards. So he would raise both his hands and say, yes, that's what I want. If every life ends means not suiciding, if every being's rebirth is stopped, that would be the ultimate happiness. How would be ultimate happiness? I know it's a different topic. It's a different discussion has to be done on that, right? How do he defend that? Yes, he has answers. We have answers for that. So then according to him, yes, he would say, that's what I would want. So therefore, if someone feels what would happen to the society if everyone becomes a recluse and attain arahantship and stop the rebirth, for me, according to my standards, it's a badly constructed question. Like, if you tell doctor, you are treating the sicknesses that makes your life living. If I say be careful, I don't think it's a good question. It's not a good, ethically good question. So likewise, according to Buddha's standards, Buddha sees the society is a collection of humans. This is the ultimate level of Buddhism. We don't talk about it much in public because for the public, we talk a lower level of Buddhism. Because in the higher level of Buddhism, they give up all the bondages. Right? They give up all the property. They become recluses. So if you have listened to the Dhamma talks the Buddha has given to recluses, you feel like it was in a different level. Marriages, children, bondages, family life, all are being seen as something suffering for the monks. Right? And that cannot be taught to the lay life in very detail, but it is going to create a huge conflict. But if you ask the question in the ultimate level, that's why I said, if applying Buddhism in its entirety to the society seems little bit impractical given the nature of the society. That's why when he got enlightened, the first thought the Buddha had, do you know what is the first thought the Buddha had? Kichena me adigatang alang halang dani pakasatu. I found this truth. Having sacrificed a lot of lives, lives means not sacrifice, a lot of time and a lot of effort. Halandani pakan. I dare not to say this to the people. Raga dosa paretehi nayan dhammo susambudu. How would people appreciate this Dhamma who are being indulging sensual pleasures? They would not appreciate this. Patisota gaming nipunang gambhiran duddasang anun. This is not appealing to the society. This is too deep. And this goes against the desires. One who applies this entirely would give up the social life and become a recluse. This is going to create a huge problem in the society, obviously. Gambhiran, Raga Rattana Dakkin, they will not understand the benefits of Madhi's teachings. Thamo Kandena Auta. Because they have been deluded and it will just be a fatigue for my body. Preaching. Then the Brahma came and said, no, please, Venerable Sir, don't think so. There are certain beings who are ready to accept this doctrine, the ripened ones. Not everyone will appreciate your teachings. Some would do that. So then he got encouraged and preached the Dhamma, and it was effective to some extent. Yes, so therefore, as you said, good citizen or good humans, right? As a Buddhist monk. I hope you got a better picture on this. I gave a long answer to this. As you said, as a Buddhist monk, if I ask you to apply Buddhism entirely into the society, personally I would feel it is not applicable given the desires and the structures of the society. Okay, time now it is a lot of time has passed, I think.
Yes.
It's 11? 10 o'clock, okay. It was nice to have a discussion with you all and good questions. Yes, I'll be staying in Australia till 31st. 31st, ne? Yes, 31st, and we're leaving back.
I have a schedule of what to preach.
Okay.
I think you're doing karma and reincarnation on the 17th, I think.
17th, is it in English?
I
Is
think
it that?
BSV?
Buddhist Society of Victoria.
Victoria, okay, okay.
BSV, if that's.
It will be lively broadcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you have? Can I give you
Yeah, okay, okay, a juice, orange juice, I would like. But it has to be filtered. We don't use the pulp afternoon.
Yes,
No,
no,
but-
we got, because we have
Pulp free.
we have
Pulp free, okay, then no, that's fine.
pulp free, orange juice or apple juice?
Orange juice I like. So I'll just first conclude the lecture, just sit it, okay. So it was nice talking to you all and good questions. Thank you for the questions, and I'll be leaving on 31st back to Sri Lanka, and because we are running an institute training monks, because this is our vacation. We teach 4 months continuously, 1 month's exams, because we want to test whether they really understood what we taught, right? And then 1 month vacation. May and November will be vacations, so I was invited by Dilu and Taraka, so that's why I visited them, and they have been taking care of me very nicely. So another monk came with me, and he was a bit sick today, so that's why he stayed, and he also could give sermons in English. And we have 8 teachers in our institute, and we are training at the moment 63 Buddhist monks. Right, it's a 6-year program going on, and we will be recruiting monks after 6 years. We will be taking teachers from that group and be recruiting every year 20 monks. Courses are done in English and Sinhalese both, and we have created new syllabuses to make because just to tell you briefly about the institute, something about the course, because Buddha has said if a monk needs to live alone by himself, he has to have completed 7 qualities. 7 qualities. So one has to know a meditation technique till the final goal, at least one meditation technique. They should have known all the Vinaya rules laid down by the Buddha, Vinaya protocols. He should have memorized certain amount of Dharma taught by the Buddha, and also he should have the skills of preaching the Dhamma, and finally he has to have trained himself under a teacher for at least 5 years. So taking all this into consideration, we created a new program with a new curriculum, with new textbooks, including practical meditation and all the trainings in day-to-day lives, and they are being like they train doctors to be skilled to treat others. We are training monks to be qualified, so they can teach the Buddha's teachings in this authentic form without distorting the Dhamma. So that's the purpose of our institute. So this is the vacation. So I visited here, and it was nice to have your to give a lecture on, to this audience, and wish you all the best. May you be able to pursue the good ethics in your life, and will be able to achieve all your sublime goals as you wished. So we can share the merits with the dead relatives and also the devas. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita huntu nyatayo. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita huntu nyatayo. Idang vo nyati nang hotu sukita huntu nyatayo. Akasattha ca bummatta deva naga mahiddika. Punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu sambuddha sasanang. Akasattha ca bummatta deva naga mahiddika. Punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu sambuddha desanang. Akasattha ca bummatta deva naga mahiddika. Punyantang anumoditva chiran rakkantu sambuddha savakang. Chirang rakkantu tvan sada imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo. Satan samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Imina punya kammena mame bala samagamo. Satan samagamo hotu yava nibbana pattiya. Imina punya kammena ධම්මේන මාමේ බාල සමාගමෝ සතං සමාගමෝ හෝතු යාව නිබ්බාන පත්තියා ඉදම්මේ පුඤ්ඤ කම්මං ආසවක්ඛයා වහං හෝතු ඉදම්මේ පුඤ්ඤ කම්මං ආසවක්ඛයා වහං හෝතු ඉදම්මේ පුඤ්ඤ කම්මං ආසවක්ඛයා වහං හෝතු සබ්බ දුක්ඛා පමුඤ්චතු. So I may give you some blessings. Sabbhetiyo vivajjantu sabbha rogo vinassatu mate bhavatvantarayo sukhi digayuko bhava abhivadhana silissa niccang buddhapachayino chattaro dhamma vaddhanti ayuvanno sukhang balang ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevaca atho nibbana sampatti ඉමිනාතේ සමිඤ්ජතු.